Clean your room. Get the clothes off your floor. Hang up your coats. Any of you told children that? Maybe you've told yourself that. Maybe you were told that. Many of us would do well by cleaning up our rooms, maybe starting with the clothes that are on the chair in our room. As Warren read the scripture today, maybe you listened and you heard about those pieces of clothes put not only on the donkey but on the roadway. And I've always thought maybe the clothing gets second billing to the palms. Maybe this could also be called Coat Sunday. Darrell Denning says people's cloaks and other interpretations use the word garment were spread for the entry. And it was an act of honor. It was a declaration that Jesus was the King of Kings, the promised Messiah. And the word for garment is talit, or prayer shawl. It's a seamless four-corner piece of fabric with tassels to remind Jewish people of all the commandments of God. And it expresses, because they were put down in front of Jesus on the donkey, that Jesus is that Messiah, the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings. Do you recall other coat stories from the Bible? What about the woman who was bleeding for 12 years? Imagine the exhaustion, the shame, the exclusion. And she came up to Jesus in a crowd and thought, if only I can touch his cloak, I will be healed. And Jesus knew someone had touched his cloak and said, take heart, daughter, your faith has healed you. And the woman was healed in that moment. What about other coat stories? There's one about the green-eyed monster, jealousy. You see, the Bible's not out of date. The stories in the scripture get played out today in our everyday life. There was some sibling rivalry. And these brothers thought, we'll put him in a pit. We'll sell him to slave traders going to Egypt. We'll take his fancy coat that Dad gave him that none of the rest of us have. We'll cover it with animal's blood and show it to Dad and convince he was attacked and destroyed by wild animals. Of course, that's not only a story in the Hebrew Scriptures, it's the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat story of Andrew Lloyd Webber. It reminds us that jealousy over even a coat can ruin lives. What happened at Golgotha on the cross of Calvary? They hung him on the cross. But what did the soldiers do? They cast lots. They gambled, you will. They threw the dice to see who could get his effects, if you will. Who would get his cloak? Maybe the exact one he was wearing. Then that woman touched it and was healed from that horrible bleeding. There, as he was hanging on the cross, to see those soldiers doing that. But soon, one of those soldiers would confess. The centurion, when he saw the earthquake and he saw all the things that were happening, he said, truly, this is the Son of God. Walton, with some of our neighboring churches a number of years ago, started the Bronte Coat Drive. And I think this is a physical expression of loving our neighbors. Our Outreach Committee and others collect gently used winter coats, clean them, repurpose them. Often they're given to refugees adjusting to this Canadian climate of ours. It's an important ministry. First of all, those coats do not end up in a landfill, but they help someone who is cold. Our Outreach Shrove Tuesday pancake dinner to start Lent. The monies raised help to cover the administrative costs of our Brawny Coat Drive. A coat laid out in front of a donkey. The coats we collect as an expression of our faith in the one riding the donkey. Now, back on February 23rd, about 30 people from the congregation went to see the Hilary Swank movie, Ordinary Angels, at the Burlington Cineplex. Spoiler alert, not to give away the story, but there's a very dramatic scene when a young girl throws her red blanket on a snowy piece of ground, and the others around her peel off their coats and they add to the blanket to create a landing spot for a medevac helicopter in a church parking lot in a blizzard so the helicopter could see to land. To me, that reminds us of what happened on Palm Sunday and what we do as believers to help others in the name of the one that rode on the donkey. So I wrote this a little while ago, and the next line says, I hope the next time you put on a coat, you might remember this coat meditation. And I think it was 18 degrees that day. It's probably the reason it snowed on Friday. Let us remember that act of respect, that act of worship centuries ago. But what we do in following the example of those worshipers on Palm Sunday as we worship Jesus. God bless.